of the error. Makes it a quorum. Thank you.
For HR as well.
And for HR. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
I guess we will call this meeting.
Ms. Buff,
Here.
Ms. Shakarian,
Here.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Here.
Ms. Rashidi,
Here.
and Mr. Thornton.
Yes, here. Well, let's look at exhibit one, discussion. Resolution to accept gifts for the month of November.
Mhm.
You didn't want to do a presentation.
Oh, actually, we have a presentation.
Oh, did I skip something?
Yeah, we want to bring James because James is nervous, so we want to make sure he stays. We want to keep him as nervous as possible.
We do not want to skip. I am so sorry. Yes, Central Distribution Facility Logistics Department. I don't want to skip this presentation. I am so sorry.
It's a great one. I hope you're all ready for it.
Yes.
Very exciting.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Steve Wool. I'm our Senior Manager of Lending, Logistics, and Circulation.
And my name is James Clardy. I'm the Logistics and Circulation Manager.
All right.
And we are here today just to give you all an update on the automated materials handler and our tote check-in server that we utilize out in the logistics department at our central distribution facility. So we want to go through some of the tools and resources that we've been using over the last year since the CDF has been open, and just kind of answer any questions that you may have about that process. So the very first thing that we're going to talk about here is just giving you a overview, kind of a description or a visual of what the automated materials handler looks like in action. So this is just a demonstration of us scanning items into the sorter there. And as we are scanning them, the items are all moved through a automated conveyor belt and sent to the correct destination. So we have the bins there. Those are all the different bins for our different branches and for the CPL branches and our CleanNet partners. So the sorter will communicate with our integrated library service, CERSI, and routes the items accordingly. So most of the items are just in transit to fill a hold or be reshelved at their owning location. But also if there is a hold that's placed while the item's in transit, the machine is able to reroute that automatically, where in the past we had to wait for that to arrive at the branch before it could get manually scanned and rerouted. And James is going to talk a little bit about our tote check-in server.
So one of the main features of our purchase from Linkso is our tote check-in server. This is we put a 4-digit barcode on all of the telescopes. So now what we like to do is we're a support staff. So we like to support our frontline and make their job as easy as possible. So with the 4-digit barcode, all staff has to do is scan the barcode instead of scanning each item to route it into CERSI. Now you just scan the barcode outside of the telescope. Simultaneously, all the items in the telescope are routed in and checked into that designated location. And it saves the branch time about 6 minutes per telescope, which is giving more time to spend time with patrons and staff. Far as on our end, the tote check-in server is amazing because we understand where every item is. So as soon as it goes through our sorter, we know what time it was sorted. We know what time it went to the telescope. We know which specific telescope it is in. We know when that specific telescope is checked in, checked out, and we know when that item leaves the telescope. So it also helps us at the end of each year from us having a ton of missing items in our database. Now, when something is missing, which happens several times since we went live with this, we get a phone call. I just go in our server and I know exactly where the item is and find that item, okay? Next, we have a demonstration of the tote check-in server. So this is Steve pretending he's part of Brooklyn branch. So right now, Steve is logging into Brooklyn's tote check-in server process. So what happened is he would take the scanner just as if you were scanning an item, but instead of scanning an item, he would just scan the barcode, which the video kind of chopped up and see. But as you can see, a manifest popped up. On that manifest, everything that's green says, hey, this is the home of the location. You're good to go. At the top, if you see on the manifest, you will see a yellow icon. The yellow icon means, hey, these are whole items for patrons. The good thing about that is it took 700 milliseconds for 22 items right there. So instead of going through and scanning each one, it was 700 milliseconds. Yeah, so it's really good. The whole items, you won't have to go through the telescope and try to find them. because of our sorter, they come with the adhesive hold slip. And then I'll let Steve talk about the adhesive hold slip.
So as the items are going through the sorter, I don't know if you probably missed it, but on the first video that we had, if there's a hold for the item, it will get sent to what we call the print and apply station. And what happens there is on the picture that you can see over there, there's an adhesive hold slip that's automatically applied to the item. So when that arrives at the branch, that's how they can also know, just kind of visually see as they open the telescope of material, which items have holds that need to go to the hold shelf and which items need to go just back to get their home location and just get reshelved. So the adhesive hold slip just has the last 4 digits of the patrons, or the first 4 digits of the patron's last name and the last 4 digits of their card number. And then on the next slide, we'll show you kind of what it looks like for the branch staff when they receive the items in their telescope. They can just peel those adhesive hold slips off, put it on the spine of the item, and then they can put the item either, for some of our branches, they have holds on the floor, what we call, so the patrons can just go right there, pull the item off the hold shelf, or they can, if they don't have holds on the floor, put it in the off-desk area. And we like putting it on the spine of the label because that also does help protect the patron privacy as well, because some patrons may not want the titles of their items kind of being shown if they're around the public floor, so that kind of helps protect their privacy as well.
All right, another amazing purchase that we got from Linkso is our tote lifters. The good thing about, I tell my staff all the time, the good and bad thing about me doing, I work their job. So I know the hardship and I know the difficulties of the job, and lifting heavy things can come at a price. You know, some people will hurt their backs, things like that. So the tote lifters was like a godsend. We eliminated all floor lifts. So they eliminate injuries and time off for staff, that's very important as well. With the tote lifters, you can pick up to 300 pounds. You would, as one staff member is demonstrating right here, he's only picking up 4, but you could pick up to 7 or 8. You can move them across the room. You can pick up the top 2 if you want to leave the bottom 2 alone as well. Another good thing for this is we have 2 at each induction station. If you want to look at the video that Steve did, he was at an induction station. So what the staff like to do is they like to pick up 6 or 7, and they like to just open the top, and when they sort the material, they take a telescope off, and then they hit the button and raise it. So no more bending down to lift materials or put it on the table like I had to do. I had to do all the hard work. This is way easier. So it's a lot safer for our staff, and they really love it. This is one thing they love. They love everything, but they love this the most.
Oh, that's fabulous.
And the next slide.
Yeah.
Now, because of all our resources and hard work, over the last year, we've been able to sort over 1 million titles through our sorter, which is pretty good. We spending the money really well. We earning it. I can say that. So this is just from November to November, and I anticipate even more as the time goes on.
And then on the next slide, so this is just trying to give you a visual idea of what the impact it's kind of having. So you can see the items are arriving, the orange line in the middle there, that kind of shows the graph to the left will show what it looks like before we instituted the automated sorter. And then on the right side, you see what it looks like afterwards. So what you're looking at is kind of the graph of the transit times for items. So the items are arriving roughly 1 day faster. There's not a huge change there, but the biggest change that we're seeing is you see the flat lining on the right side of that graph. That just shows that the transit times are getting a lot more consistent. So it's a lot more predictable. We know where the items are at. We can have a much better idea of when those items are going to arrive at the branch. And just on top of that, as James had kind of mentioned earlier, there's transparency throughout the process. We can actually see where these items are now. Beforehand, they kind of went to a black hole once they left the branch, and we just kind of crossed our fingers and hope they arrived at the next location. And most of the time they did. But now we can kind of see every time they're scanned into the system or into the sorter, we know where they're at. It's updating us in live time and just giving us a lot more visibility throughout the process.
That is so cool. So I have a question.
Yeah.
I just finished a book called The Mighty Red by Louise Erdrich, which is new. And I realized that it was purchased, it said 1024, and it was from Girard, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
So now, how do they get from Girard to Cleveland even? I mean, is that just the regular postal system?
Yeah, so that way that works. So the first thing it does when you place a hold for an item is Cersei will always try to fill that hold as efficiently as possible. So wherever you're picking up at, it's going to look at that branch first to see if they have an available copy. If they don't, Then it's going to go out to the other Cleveland Public Library branches, assuming that's where you're
I
picking up
don't
at.
even know where Gerard is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I know we work with them a lot. I'll be honest with you. We have 47 different CleveNet libraries, and I'm not sure where they're at. But it'll always try to fill the hold in the closest proximity to where you want to pick it up at.
Right.
Gerard, I think, is kind of far out, so there must not be a ton of copies of that throughout the system, or maybe that was just
It
Or
is
the-
a new book.
it's
Pretty
and
new.
with the new ones. It could also just be the time if there's a lot of holds for it, and there's a lot of variables that could go into it. But
Yeah.
to answer your question, it would just show up on the Girard Public Library's hold list or pull list. So they would pull it off their shelf, put it into, we use our telescopes, but they may use a bag or something like that. And then we all use the State Library of Ohio's shipping company. So it's Priority Dispatch is the name of the company.
Oh,
And they pick up from all the CleveNet libraries, take it to their distribution facility, and then they will sort it to CPL. They go to the county libraries, basically any public library in Ohio, Priority
because
Dispatch.
regular medium mail, but in the post office might be longer than
Oh, yeah,
normal.
definitely. We usually, I mean, it depends for each library system. Some of the ones that are really far out there, they may not have they may only have 3 pickups per week from Priority Dispatch. CPL, we have 5 pickups a week, so they come. We see our Priority Dispatch shippers every single day, but yeah, it's definitely quicker than USPS for sure.
It's curious.
Were there any other questions or?
This just demonstrates, I think, for patrons that, consistency, I think, is important in the service. And that's really terrific
For sure.
to see that.
So I can tell you, I having, been here for 16 years, when I came here, I was not specifically very happy with the system that was in place. System that was in place was basically they had a number of staff members in a room, you pick up some items and you just go around and throw them in bins, right? Very, labor intensive, very hard. And then someone would pick up and move the bins. And then when we got to times when our circulation move forward, in times of bad times, circulation goes up. In better times, circulation stays, lower. And then when times were bad, we got behind. We would go back there and we were a week, 2 weeks behind in being able to move items. We just couldn't physically do all of this. So we looked at doing an AMH and it took a while to get to that point or whatever. But what it does, even though our numbers are now at a point where they're not at the numbers that we would move, usually 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we're moving 4 million items, not 1 million items.
Fascinating.
So many items are being done electronically and things of that nature. They're just different ways people are looking at titles today. But those days, whatever, this would save 3 or 4 days instead of just 1 day. So, but the benefits of it is not only the time, but also, the fact that it's much easier on staff.
Very consistent.
And it's a lot more accurate.
Yes.
Because when you were talking, because you're right, one person would sit there, read a slip, and they're throwing it into 40 different bins that it could belong into, and there's just going to be some manual errors that happen there. And I know it took a little bit of the staff to get used to taking it one at a time, scanning it into the system, because it takes a little bit more time than just kind of tossing and sorting it. It's a lot easier on the body and all that, but just slowing down, it eliminates a lot of the misships and a lot of the mistakes that we were seeing throughout the process there. So.
I just have a question. I don't know if this is actually applicable, but given now that it's become automated, it hasn't eliminated any positions or need for the existing staff. It's just, of course, just made it more efficient.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we actually took the staff that were down doing the manual shipping process. They had applied because we did create a new position for this because now they're using the machine and there's some additional skills that they need to be trained on. So we had to post and we interviewed. So we were able to basically promote all of the current shipping staff that we had. And then what we did is James oversaw our receiving and distribution work out at the Lakeshore facility. So we combined the receiving and distribution staff along with the old shipping staff, and now that's what makes up our current logistics department. So we maintained all of the staff that we had there, and we actually have additional positions that were needed for 2 staff. So
Yeah, obviously, of course, you see much more positivity from the staff because less intensive labor. And like you mentioned, it probably is also more consistent with like not needing to call off the next day because they hurt their back or something.
Yep, absolutely.
And as Tressa Rodriguez was just saying, because she's been down to the Woodland building to see the space, it's a part of the new space over at Woodland, and it's much nicer, right? They're just kind of down here in the basement of main building, and as compared to where they are and the things they are able to do there. And so if you have an opportunity to go by Woodland, you can go into the facilities space and be able to see them doing the work, and like people listen to music and stuff like that. It's just a much nicer space.
Anytime, would love to have you all up.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. You guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Even James did a good job. James, he's a legacy. Who else in your family works for us beyond your grandma?
It's just my aunt Reba, that was it.
Your aunt Reba. Okay, all right.
That was it.
Thank you so much.
So back to exhibit 1, resolution to accept gifts for the month of November.
So one of the larger gifts I'd like to point out is the gift under the endowment for the blind for $325,284. The board originally accepted this last December, and we thought it was originally going to be about $50,000.
Oh my.
So, yeah, it came in at over 300.
This was the estate gift?
This
or-
was the estate gift
Okay.
for the Talking Books program
Yeah.
for Library for the Blind.
Wow.
Yes, I wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Carrie.
Sure.
Move that this exhibit be placed for Thursday's board meeting.
Second.
Ms. Butts,
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian,
Yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes. Now exhibit 2, the resolution to accept the Clubhouse Network grant to support tech.
So the library applied for this annual grant to refresh and retool the Best Buy Teen Tech Center, $10,000. We have received it previously annually. I do have Jasmine and Luigi here too from Best Buy Teen Tech Center, if there's any questions on this.
All right. Questions? We make a motion this be moved to Thursday's board meeting.
Second.
Ms. Butts,
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian,
Yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Well, they're here, so I just want to thank
Question?
Jasmine for her great work
Oh, thank you.
at the tech center. You know,
I have
Luigi's
a
the branch.
question.
Go ahead.
Could I do a
Yeah,
question?
absolutely.
This is like the second or third year that we've got, you apply for it yearly and they
Yeah.
seem to be awarding us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so this grant is specifically about getting new tech in the space, upgrading old tech, and providing supplies for the tech that we have. And so Best Buy gives that us annually as long as we're in good standing, so
that's
it's amazing
wonderful.
to be able to bring in new things for the teens in the space. And then we can provide also the supplies for like the laser engraver, sublimation, so that they can use that without having to go out and purchase things for that. So we really appreciate Best Buy's annual support.
So I have a very big question. When are we ever able to apply for another grant to get Tech Central on the east side maybe? Just a thought.
I'm not sure. I know right now Best Buy's like RFPs are closed, but they are in the process of getting closer to 100 throughout the United States. I don't know if they've ever done multiple at one organization,
Okay.
but if I ever hear any information, I'd be happy to pass it along.
Sure. I mean, you guys do such a great job, so thank you. I didn't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt.
no, has there been another Best Buy center in Ohio open?
We're the only one.
Really, the
Closest
only
is
in
And I'm over here
Pittsburgh
getting
and
greedy.
I know that. That's kind of why they're not gonna give us two. They're not giving anybody else in Ohio one. They're probably not gonna give us two, but.
Is it always 10,000 or has it ever been more?
As far as I know, this grant has always been 10,000. They do like a yearly grant for like staffing and other supplies, but this one in particular has been always 10,000.
And the other grant opportunity, is that something that you have applied to as well, or is it?
Yeah, so it's like a renewal for the space in general. So 85% of that goes towards staffing. And then the other 15 can go for overhead costs, supplies, travel, because we're expected to go to like the annual conferences and Connection Summit, all of that. So that's another yearly one.
Yeah, Carrie, do you remember what that amount is? Is it 50,000?
It depends on how much we have spent. We just received a total of 90,000 for the combination of 23 and 24. But has it been since 20, when did we open Best Buy Teen Tech Centers?
2018, and they recently upped the yearly amount. I think it's based on location.
Yeah.
So it's equity based on, like California gets more money. I think it's 75. 'cause they
Yeah, I
added
think it was
additional-
90,000 and then we didn't use the career to
I was
pathways.
so thrilled when I visited Jasmine and these two teenage males were using the sewing machine on a very creative project.
That's neat.
I was so surprised.
Thank you.
Great. All right, we're at Exhibit 3, I believe. Resolution to accept funding from the Cleveland Public Library Foundation.
So Shanice isn't here, but Shirley's here to assist me. I'm going to try. The Cleveland Public Foundation has raised restricted funding, and they are, we will be accepting $529,358.26 for 2025 annual support from the Cleveland Public Library Foundation. Of this amount, $28,401.26 is restricted for early literacy gifts. Has been secured in early literacy gifts, and that will be deposited into our early literacy fund. And $441,667 will be deposited into our public artwork fund for the Prism project. And $36,590 will be deposited into our Founders Fund for digital literacy, and $22,700 into our outreach and programming department's programming funds for the Girl Power and the Man Up programs in 2025.
Foundation's doing a great job. We've come a
Yeah.
long way from the Friends of
Wow.
the Library.
Yeah.
This has been amazing.
Mhm.
I certainly move for this to come to the board meeting on Thursday.
Second?
Ms. Bunt,
Yes, yes,
Commissioner
yes.
Carey,
Yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes,
We don't say no.
Thank you, Shirley.
yes, excellent. We're at Exhibit 4, resolution to authorize additional expenditures for waste management services.
Thanks, I can speak to this one. This is a 3-year contract, which as you see in the resolution, we entered into in November of 2022. We were about a year out from the central distribution facility project being completed. You just heard from Steve and James about the automated materials handling. Another element of that project was the trash compactor. We made some assumptions about consolidating our waste pickups to the central distribution facility compactor, but in the event, we've still had dumpsters at Main and at Lakeshore as we're kind of consolidating operations. So this is to cover the fact that in this transition period, we've had tipping fees at 3 locations rather than the one centralized location.
And then the vision is longer term to be centralized, or do we still need the other campuses that are significant like Maine and, okay.
I think we were maybe a little optimistic about
Yeah.
how much we could draw down the pickup requirements at Main and Lakeshore. Lakeshore, long-term, that may be a site that we're not picking up from anymore. I think Maine, we assumed, we have gone from a larger dumpster to a small dumpster. I think we just got a 3-yard dumpster now, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to get away from that.
Makes sense.
All right, and move this be placed on the board Thursday.
Second?
Ms. Bunt,
Yes.
Commissioner Carey,
Yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes. Exhibit 5 is resolution to amend agreement with IKM Architecture for professional design services for the Lewis Stokes Wing restroom renovation project.
Okay, so a couple of things coming together here. I'll try to paint a picture for you. We entered into an agreement with IKM to design refreshes to the lower level, LSW lower level patron restrooms. That the value of that contract didn't come up to board approval threshold, so we've been working on that. Board may recall accepting a grant a couple months ago now for a universal changing table to be incorporated into the library in the course of events of trying to figure out where that would best fit at main campus. Director had mentioned he'd always wanted a patron restroom on LSW level 1, which we don't have.
Yeah.
So kind of combining those two things, we thought, well, we'll build out a new public restroom on the first level, 2 of them actually, one to take to
Where are you
accommodate the
gonna find
universal
room?
in the indoor reading garden.
Uh-huh.
And we would design the new restrooms, we would incorporate the universal changing table, and from a design perspective, we would do it as an amendment since we already had architects on board working on bathrooms on the lower level. So that proposed amendment brings the total value of the contract above the level where board approval is necessary. So that's why we're here. So the projects will be combined. So there'll be a single set of bidding documents by this spring, which will have the lower level refresh plus the graphics in the lower level vestibule, plus the first floor restrooms with the universal changing table incorporated into
So the whole over 100,000 is for 2 new restrooms as well as this changing table on the lower level.
It's the refresh of the lower level, which we estimated as an over $250,000 project, plus building the 2 new restrooms on the main level, including all of the ventilation, mechanical, electrical, including ADA improvements to the drop-off book lending area. So kind of one was pulling the thread on a sweater a little bit. One thing led to another, but this is going to pick all of that up.
Thank you.
I know there was when it was presented, the grant, there was like discussion on making sure when this is completed, we have like proper marketing or like people know and it's aware or like how to use it. So I don't know, like that's probably separate, of course, from the actual construction and work on it.
We'll have wayfinding signage and graphics, so it'll be, it'll be
Very visible.
attractively presented to our patrons, and then we'll be working with the marketing team on announcing it.
What's the expected completion date?
It'd be late 2025 and early 2026. We should have contract documents to bid by the spring. We'll bring a construction contract aboard. Figure 4 to 6 months construction. That puts us late in the year.
Thank you.
Move for adoption.
Second?
Ms. Butts,
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian,
Yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes. Exhibit 6, resolution to amend agreement with Integrated Precision Systems, Inc. for access control systems.
This is a pretty small amendment, but it's to a larger contract that was board approved. That's why we're presenting this resolution to you. We approved a master agreement with IPS for security devices, cameras, sensors throughout the FMP. We typically put those into our design up front, and then occasionally during security walkthrough and construction, we seek additional enhancements. So I think Director Goins is with me today, but during we're late in construction now at MLK, and in the course of walking through, once you've got a built out space, determined that some extra cameras would enhance the overall security of the building. So we'd like to incorporate them into the project. And since this was a large master contract, the amendment requires your approval. So this is not a large dollar value. It'll give the cameras and devices needed to provide the enhanced security that SPS director recommends.
At this price, it can't be too many more cameras, right? I guess like it's just
It was
enhancements,
4.
entryways, 4.
4
Okay.
cameras, yeah. And then we're adjusting heights too. I know so many of you have been in the building. So with the mezzanine,
Yeah.
kind of on paper, some of the sight lines, once things are in place, they've been tweaked a little bit. So we've tried to raise things. We've tried to find the right height that it's not attractive for someone to jump up and touch, but it's not too high that's being blocked by the mezzanine. So that's required some tweaking.
Understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Money well spent then.
I think so expensive.
Any other discussion? Move for adoption.
Second?
Ms. Butts,
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian,
Yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Thank you, John.
Exhibit 7, resolution to advance cash from the general fund to early literacy fund.
So we have 2 grants that are in our early literacy fund. We have the United Way grant and we have the Ohio Department of Education grant, the Libraries Accelerating Learning grant. And those are both reimbursing grants. So we have expended more funds than we've been reimbursed when we're closing the year. So this will temporarily advance the amount needed, $170,577.22 from the general fund into the early literacy fund, and that will be repaid once all reimbursements have been received.
When was the last reimbursement received? Before it was delayed?
We'll file for monthly reimbursements, so we're like a month behind.
is it usually this way? Cause just the time of the year, I know a lot of like institutions that this time of year just sometimes slows down like those processes. So would it pick back up hopefully by January?
Yeah, we should receive it by January, yes.
Okay. Having the discussion, move for adoption.
Second,
Ms. Butts,
Yes,
Ms. Shakarian,
yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes. Exhibit 8, resolution authorizing transfer of funds from the general fund to the debt service fund.
So in the chart in the middle of the whereas clause, it shows that our total official certificate of estimated resources in the general fund is just over $101 million. And then deducting our current annual appropriation, which is going also before the board in our general fund, but hasn't changed since the 9th amendment, is just over 71 million. And then repaying back to the general fund all the advances out from the other special revenue funds. We are anticipating an estimated unencumbered balance in the general fund of $30.7 million. And this resolution will allow the general fund to transfer $3,227,316.36 in order to pay for our debt service in the debt service fund in 2025. And this is for our phase 1 notes that we issued.
Point of information perhaps. Should we be considering the 10th Amendment Exhibit 9 ahead of Exhibit 8?
We haven't, it hasn't changed in
Okay.
the general fund.
Okay.
All right, move for adoption.
Second,
Ms. Butts,
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian,
yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes. The next, two exhibits, we have Exhibit 9, the 10th Amendment to the year 2024 appropriation.
Yes, the amount that we're actually amending the appropriation is very small. It's in the capital improvement projects, which is on the second to last page, and it's $54,959.79. And that will be allocating funds in the building and repair fund specifically for the IPS MLK cameras that John just spoke about, and then the IKM architect fees for the Lewis Stokes Wing restroom amendment. And then I did want to bring to your attention that while we are amending our appropriation, we have updated our estimated certificate of resources at year end because we have basically received all the revenue we're going to receive. And our property tax, we are increasing by about $3 million, and that includes our delinquent collections. So since it does include our delinquent collections, those were just over 3 million. We actually received less than we were certified. So our collection rate did drop a little bit. We received about 368,000 less than we were certified. So our collection rate decreased from 91.15% to 90.26%. And then our public library fund, we are expecting to receive just over $56,000 than where we're currently certified.
Is that slight drop to 90% consistent statewide? Or is it consistent also with history?
With the county libraries, I didn't get the full collection rates, but I could report back on that.
I'm just
Yeah.
curious
Yeah,
how out of line we are.
We tend to be, we're much better than we were.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? County generally is in the county library system is in the 96 to 97%.
It's a different
Range.
demographic.
They're
though.
Yes.
almost 100% this year, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we are.
Mhm.
But I think, from probably 2012 to 2018 or 19, we were in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
Okay. Post-recession
say
and
again, the
housing
amount
crisis,
that's
yeah.
above what you expected from the Ohio Library. You just gave.
But
an
we'll
amount.
get those numbers for you guys by
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah.
We'll have
Yeah.
them for Thursday.
Yeah, if the budget commission has posted the actual collection rates for the other libraries, I'll report back on it.
I mean, just what we can do also to continually work with the county on, I don't know, if there's a conversation with the prosecutor's office, for instance, on collection and how we can be a partner with that. If there's PR and other things happening, I think we should.
Well, we've had those conversations when you take the variety of tips and other things in
Yes.
consideration, the delinquencies are very significant for us.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
it
over
is.
$11 million.
A move
last
of
year.
1% can be quite significant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Let's continue to think about it.
mhm.
Mhm.
Guess we can now move that for adoption.
Ms. Bunce,
Yes,
Ms. Shakarian,
yes,
and Mr. Parker.
Yes. And we have the year 2025 annual appropriation measure, Exhibit 10.
So this is our annual appropriation measure for all of our funds. On the resolve clause, it shows that we will be appropriating $69,266,531.55 for the general fund. And that does include that transfer in from the debt service fund. So the total operating appropriation for the general fund is $66,039,215.19. And this amount is consistent with the target numbers that we presented to the board in August. We took our current projected revenues and including the delinquent tax collections, which we normally don't do. And then we backed out the 2 mil levy revenue that we are using for our for our facilities master plan. And then we're taking that projected revenue amount and then we're aligning it with our strategic priority and allocating 67% of that to our salaries and benefits and 12% to our library materials. And, you know, the whole entire administrative team has been working on this since August until this time. And it's our best analysis right now because we actually have not received our public library fund revenue certification yet or our property tax revenue from Budget Commission. So we're just doing projections on that. And then the rest of the funds, we are totally appropriating, let me get to that number. $16,670,392.42 in our special revenue funds, our permanent funds, our endowment funds, and our debt service fund and our capital improvement fund. So those are on the attached schedule, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on those appropriations.
should it be called estimate appropriation measure since we don't have the final, like for our board action?
No, this can be.
This can be,
Yeah, this
okay.
could be our original appropriation measure. We did submit to the Budget Commission our estimated certificate of resources on December 11th.
Other questions, discussion?
Mm-mm.
All right, move for adoption.
Second,
Ms. Bunce,
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian,
yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes, that concludes the Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Parker. Trustee Shakarian, we'll move into the human resource.
It is my pleasure to present Exhibit 11, our regular employment report detailing the new hires, resignations. We had no terminations or resignations, and promotions. So moved.
Second?
The second,
Slack.
thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Bunce,
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian,
Yes.
Ms. Rashid,
Yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes.
And a resolution for special closings and holidays for 2025, looking into the new year. Whereas the Cleveland Public Library desires to keep the public informed of its hours of operation, and whereas the Cleveland Public Library will be closed in 2025 in observance of the following holidays. And we list in the resolution the holidays. Resolve that the proposed schedule be approved by the Library Board of Trustees to become effective immediately for consideration at our Thursday meeting this week. So moved.
Second. Second.
Ms. Bunce,
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian.
Yes.
Ms. Rashid,
Yes.
and Mr. Parker.
Yes.
And that concludes the Human Resources Committee.
Thank you, Trustee Shakarian.
Yes. We didn't know if we'd have opportunity in new business, on Thursday, there's a resolution that's going to come before the board to examine the Northeast Ohio broadcast archives.
Oh.
And if we have
fun.
a video that would be very helpful, it's 6 minutes, and I thought we had
Wonderful.
time here. I leave it up to the board chair to give us whether we have time to do this today instead of Thursday. Thought it might be easier for us to have this video today than Thursday when we're really pretty busy.
I agree, but before we get started, and thank you, Michael, I just want to take 2 minutes of our time. We posted the new schedule for 2025 for the board.
Mhm.
There have been some adjustments. There's 3 different months where we're only gonna be having 1 meeting. So I'm trying to make sure that everyone takes a look at it, maybe take it into consideration to put it on their schedule, because those are
Absolutely.
gonna be very important for us to have a quorum. If you know for sure that you cannot be here, could you let us know as soon as possible? So if we could just shoot these, there's some that we're only gonna have a Thursday meeting and some only a Tuesday meeting for various reasons. Please let us know. I'd appreciate that. It's all yours, Michael. Let's go. We have time.
So just to give Michael, I just want to commend Michael Ruffing and John Skirdick for the work they have done to get us to this point that we are. I think you'll see a video. Some of you may have seen it, but others on the board have not. And I think it's really important for us to kind of have an overview. The resolution on Thursday is for us to be able to move forward on bringing the archives to Cleveland Public Library. But Michael?
So I'll say that I'm sorry that Mr. Corrigan isn't here because he is the one who really brought this to us initially. John Carroll University from 1987 until last year housed the Northeast Ohio Broadcast Archives, which consists of about 250,000 news films and videos from the 1950s until approximately 1990. So it literally is the memory of our great city and region. Everything from the Browns championship of 1964 to all of Martin Luther King's visits to Cleveland, Kent State, and just anything you can think of is in this collection, which was in peril because John Carroll could not manage it anymore. So we were asked as a library, can you do this? So I talked to director and others and John Skirdick, and I said, we need a plan. We don't know if we can do this. So we hired Linda Todich, who is one of the leading people in the world in film preservation out of Los Angeles, and she developed a plan for us with a very detailed budget. And that is the basis for the resolution on Thursday. But what the video we will see today is just what we call a sizzle reel, which kind of gives you an idea of the type of content in this collection. So without further ado, if you could roll tape, please.
Did you talk about this was it at the last board meeting, was this mentioned? I thought I heard
Ohio,
something.
between 1950 and 1990, you can probably find it.
I'm Rob Powers from WEWS.
And I'm Russ Mitchell from WKYC. And we've teamed up to talk to you about a project that is extremely important to us and all of us here in Northeast Ohio. The Northeast Ohio Broadcast Archives.
On December 17th, 1947, WEWS signed onto the airwaves and became the very first TV station in Ohio. It was quickly followed by WKYC in 1948. And soon, folks were flocking to their black and white TV sets to catch all the day's news, weather, and sports.
As the industry grew, so did our ability to capture the collection of films and video that told the story of our lives. We covered news stories, big and small, from civil rights and the Vietnam War to the St. Patrick's Day Parade, to the hottest sports competitions, and of course, the unpredictable Northeast Ohio weather. In those early days, all the action was caught on 16mm film. It was expensive, so those early newscasts were shorter, and it was quite the task to get the film processed, edited, and onto the air.
The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
Soon came the advent of color TV, and film was replaced by the less expensive new format of videotape. And from those earliest days, astute journalists, videographers, and editors who worked in the newsroom became aware of archiving and saving those moments of history.
By the mid-1980s, both stations, busting at the seams with film and tape, decided to house their archives at John Carroll University. For more than 35 years, this extraordinary archive of Northeast Ohio history, one of the greatest historical collections in the country, was available only to the privileged few who could afford to have individual films or tapes digitized.
Just over a year ago, the university notified the stations and radio station WGAR that it could no longer house the collection. The future of the recorded history of Northeast Ohio, more than 250,000 16-millimeter films, videos, and audio recordings were at risk of being lost forever.
Recognizing the extraordinary and irreplaceable historic and research value of the Northeast Ohio Broadcast Archives, the Cleveland Public Library stepped in and took temporary custody of the archives with the goal of finding a path forward to guarantee that this treasure trove of Northeast Ohio history is preserved, digitized, and made freely available to students, researchers, curious citizens, and filmmakers. Not only digitized and made available, but the thousands of digital files that will be created are also permanently preserved.
The archive is literally the memory of a city, a great city, whose influence courses through every seminal event that took place in the United States post-World War II. These are the stories of Northeast Ohio in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
In thousands of carefully packed boxes, you will find a cache of film, video, and audio recordings not seen or heard since they were originally created, back to the 50s. The collection is history and waiting to be rediscovered. It is people, places, and events, both familiar and forgotten. It is everything from all the footage that remains of Dorothy Fulltime's career.
Dr. King, you remember we had him on our program when he received the Nobel Prize.
To extensive footage of Dr. Martin Luther King.
We want every Negro in the city of Cleveland of voting age to be registered.
Stumping to get Carl Stokes elected as the first African-American mayor of a major American city.
I, Carl B. Stokes. Carl B. Stokes.
There's also the tragedy of the Huff riots, the blizzard of 1978, and who can forget the famous Burning River?
All of us believe in Dr. Sam's innocence. We have since July the 4th, and we certainly still do.
The Sam Shepard trial, or the day Ohio's own Neil Armstrong became the first person to step foot on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We covered the Browns' championship season in 1964, the Cleveland Indians' run at the World Series back in the 90s.
Every major news story that put Northeast Ohio in the spotlight, the shooting and aftermath at Kent State University, the trial of alleged Nazi guard John Demjanjuk, and dozens more, all stories that had an impact on the lives of the people here in Northeast Ohio and beyond.
And then there's the history of broadcasters who made their name both locally and nationally. WEWS's Dorothy Fulltime was the first woman news anchor in the United States. She went on to spend nearly 40 years in local television after entering the business at the age of 55. She educated viewers daily with her insightful on-air delivery, first as a news anchor and later as an interviewer and commentator.
Why do you want a revolution?
I want a revolution that we can be free so that we can free Bobby Seale, free from racism, free from pigs. We got to eliminate all the pigs.
About pigs, you're referring to human beings or animals?
I'm referring to policemen.
Well, I've got a shock for you.
You don't like that.
I'm very friendly with police.
Oh, you are you? Well, I got a shock for you. I'm very friendly with the Black Panther Party.
Out. Stop the interview.
And Barbara Walters credited Dorothy for paving the way for Walters and dozens of other female news anchors.
And Northeast Ohio continues to get love on the national scene from Al Roker.
Feeling good, Double D, and Matt's doing the weather.
Who spent a good chunk of the 1980s as a weather anchor at WKYC before the network drafted him to take over as the weather anchor for the Today Show, a role he continues to this day. These are only two of the many national broadcasters who began their careers right here in Northeast Ohio.
The task ahead is enormous. as all these films and videotapes are carefully cleaned, spliced, restored, digitized, and made available to the public.
But we can hardly wait to see the countless treasures that will unfold before our eyes and yours.
Wow.
This is so terrific.
So we did talk informally after the meeting, but it wasn't at the meeting last time.
Okay.
I just remembered that. But I will remark that today, December 17th, which was mentioned in the video, Channel 5, the first television station between New York and Chicago, went on the air on this day 77 years ago. And so our vision is to have all of these, this entire archive available in perpetuity for our public, for endless educational and nonprofit use.
Amazing.
Very cool.
It's a massive test we had ahead of us, and it's a massive test for Shirley and the foundation folks to find us the money to do this project. I think we'll talk a little bit further on Thursday around the budget necessary to be able to do something of this nature. But this will obviously put us on the map all over the country because there's no one else that has anything like this.
I just have to say that video made me, I didn't expect, but very emotional. Because I think of all the things people don't know or never had access to. I mean, television access is a privilege even till today. And I think when you think of all the things that nobody realizes that has a record like that from on the news, it's very fascinating.
Very moving.
Is that going to be put on our website, the video itself?
Because
I think it should be.
one of the things that I noticed is because of our bandwidth, I think some of the image dropped out. So there were parts where there should have been images that I know are there, but because of the way it was broadcasting, you heard all the sound, but some of the images didn't come up. But we could swap out the one that's being recorded now with the actual one so that people can see it.
That's amazing.
But
I think a lot of people need to see it. Yeah.
And as you can see, Channel 3 and Channel 5 are very supportive of us, donating the time to be able to do that video. And that's the video we're using to go in front of funders to kind of talk to them about it. And as Trustee Rodriguez says, I mean, there's also the opportunity for individual donation for us to be able to do this.
Sponsorships of certain aspects of the collection.
And to help maintain it.
I also note that I've been working with Chief Malcolm and his wonderful creative crew on ways that the content can be used by the public for free and in classrooms and legal. Brian Zalewski's been helping me with the various intellectual property rights agreements that we insisted be in place before we raise any money, so that we know that if we raise the money, that we have those rights, and that we don't enter into a negotiation at that point, that we have it all spelled out now, what our rights will be.
Wow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And I thank everyone else, and we will see you on Thursday.
Thank
Meeting
you.
adjourned. I don't know if we're going to meet afterwards, but I need a couple minutes.